I have a simple question. I asked many people last year. Please tell me your Bowie story.
Oh yes, with pleasure. So basically I was about 12 years old, just getting into music, like every teenager, and I was standing in front of MTV, and the video of China Girl came up. And something happened to me I can't describe, I don't know what, and it just hit, struck a chord, I don't know, something, it hit me. And I thought it was the most beautiful voice I'd ever heard, the most beautiful face, interesting face, and the whole video was very intriguing for me. And so I started staying in front of MTV, hoping this video would come again and again and again. And then, of course, it did, but in the meantime, I absorbed a lot of other good music. And then Modern Love came up, and then I decided, okay, I want to know more about this guy. And so I went back and bought Space Oddity and bought the back catalogue, and I became, sort of absolutely fascinated or obsessed with Bowie. And the words spoke to me, because many of the experiences I was having would be reflected in his words or bits of his words. So it really spoke to me. And very inspiring.
Sara, what is your artistic education, or is there one?
Oh yes, of course. So basically, in my family there were all the basically grandfather, even my father, were painters. They had other jobs, but they were good at that. So I was encouraged to paint, and also I was taught to look at the great masters. So they became like my mentors. I wanted to emulate them. I particularly, in Italy you have Leonardo and everything. So I wanted to become like them. And then I also started drawing mangas and things like that. And I just, people seemed to like what I was doing and complimented me. So I thought maybe I'm quite good at this, or I could be if I worked at it. And then I decided to continue. When I went to university, there was a choice whether you do sort of your academy or things like that, or study history of art. And someone told me that I'd be better off doing history of art. So I decided to study history of art. So to have this framework of references, I didn't do the other bit, which was so maybe I would have learned more technical stuff, which would be very useful now, but I have the other thing. So always in my work, I make references maybe to other painters or history of art or something like that, Right. Usually, yeah.
Now comes the question, can you make a living from art?
Well, there was a point at which I could. Actually, it was a very fun moment in my life, because I was teaching English as a foreign language. That was my main job, and I'd taken a break from painting. I'd done some commercial illustration, but I wasn't drawing and painting in any serious way. I always drew and doodled, but not much. And then Bowie passed away, and I thought, this is my moment, life is finite. And so something happened to me, and I felt that I had to draw him and to keep him alive, basically. And so I started painting and drawing a little series from The Man Who Fell to Earth. And I showed it in a pub, and people went berserk. They loved it. They started auctioning it, so I thought, perhaps I can make a living. And I kept doing it, and people loved them, and so they sold quite well. Sometimes there was a point when I couldn't even finish one that was already grabbed. And so I was living the dream, basically. It was incredible, and this success helped me to feel encouraged to try new things. I was very experimental at the time, and so it was good. And then exhibitions, I managed to exhibit in Paris and Dublin and various other places. So it was really good fun and super exciting. And I got to know a lot of people in this environment, in this world. And then something happened, something not so pleasant, which was basically, a promoter asked me to pay some money I didn't owe, and I refused to. And so he started a horrible online hate campaign, let's call it, in which he said I'd stolen money. God knows, he made up a lot of stuff. And so I had this torrent of abuse, and that made my sales go down, and it was very tricky. And so and of course I keep painting, exhibiting, but the innocence that I had at the beginning is a little bit lost. Yeah, I'd say so that money-wise, that took a hit. And so while I was before in a position where I couldn't really continue teaching because the success of art was too fast, and I was making more money doing that than teaching. Instead, the later was more like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? You know, it's like, so, yeah, a bit, So the money is, let's say, less. Still, I make the majority of my living from this and from helping my partner as well, and from some teaching. You know, a mixture of things. But I do sell, and I sold for good money some paintings, quite a lot of them. Good. Yeah.
You are an artist that has a big theme, another artist.
Yes.
Is that allowed?
Is that allowed? That's a good question. I think it is, in the sense that I felt that the world needs to remember what a great artist Bowie was, and someone needs to communicate it. Someone needs to keep him on the map. So I think, because of the art, his medium, he was a painter also, but his medium was music, and I think visually Bowie also was exceptional. So for me, it's enhancing his art. His art enhances my art, and my art hopefully helps the world to keep seeing Bowie and keep being inspired by him. The other thing I would say, that I use Bowie a little bit, and I don't know if that's allowed. I use him as a guiding light, let's say. So if I want to experiment with the painting that has nothing to do with Bowie, let's imagine an abstract or a landscape painting or maybe another portrait, I use Bowie because I just like him. And so I use him and put him there, and if it works with him as a subject, it might work. For example, I put Bowie in a background, and then I take Bowie out and I do something just with the background. So it could. So he's like a little bit of a guide, like a North Star.
It wasn't meant seriously.
I know. I'm joking. I know.
Yeah. How do you proceed with a new painting? How does it start?
How does it start? I think it starts always with looking at images. So I do a lot of image research. I go on Pinterest, and I try to source images that are not so well known usually. I sometimes use known images, but it's more fun, and I think Wardell is a bit the same. Finding something that, as a picture, is nothing really special. Maybe it's a bit grainy, or maybe it's rare. And from that, I create a world. So I think that the image is the beginning. And I also have maybe a feeling that I want to convey. Perhaps a feeling of reflection, or a feeling of time passing, or that might have something to do with what's going on in my life, or what's going on in the world sometimes at large. So I start with that image, and I kind of play with it a little bit with some simple tools like Microsoft Word, for example, and I see if it could make a good painting, and then I sketch it, and then I create maybe a background with it, or sometimes a simple image, and and it starts with that basically. It's just experimenting.
Okay. Can you tell me your trick for getting the proportions so perfect?
Okay, well, every painter has got tricks. It's all, painting is creating an illusion anyway. But I think the first trick, it's something very simple, is real in-depth observation. So you try to look at the image and to feel what Bowie was feeling. And it's not just about the proportion, it's about really the expression. So to capture that, to feel that. I think this is the thing that might make the difference. And then there's all kinds of other things. I think the main thing is to measure things accurately. Whether you do that with your pencil or you do that by gridding, which is the oldest method ever. And in that sense, the best way to grid it accurately is that you do a one-to-one image so that you can actually measure and check that. And then there's all sorts of other tricks that are known, as David Hockney explains in his documentary, The Secret Knowledge. So painters will use every trick in the book, whether it's tracing, it's projection, it's like printing it or whatever, collage, all sorts of things. It depends on what the painting itself requires. I think that if people become too reliant on any technical method and they don't use freehand at all, then their line will become very, very rigid and boring, etc. So another trick is to eliminate certain details. If you look at every single detail, you get lost in it. I do a lot of editing when I see Bowie's face, so I don't paint every single detail. For example, I was talking about painting the teeth, and you have to be accurate with that because it's very characteristic. But if you paint them too precisely or too prominently, then it will look ugly and not nice. So I think you kind of edit out some stuff and focus on what's really important so you don't get lost in it. And I think that's the trick. The other trick is very simply when it's not accurate, you throw it away and you do it again and sketch again. And so I'm not very prolific as a painter because there's a lot of stuff that ends up in the bin. So yeah, you get to see only the really good ones. I think and there's a lot of rubbish ones that happen on the way.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Do you have artistic role models?
Oh, yes. I mean, artists that inspire me?
Yeah.
Yes, but absolutely. So for me, for example, it's funny, the painters that I love are not necessarily portrait painters. They're abstract expressionists like de Kooning or Franz Klein. I do love some contemporary portrait painters or painters with the human figure. For example, Hope Gangloff is one, and a Japanese guy called Yasunari Ikenaga. So yeah, they're not very well known. I love painters like Hokusai or Norman Rockwell, the big illustrators, American illustrators such as Norman Rockwell or who else? And yeah, some Italians like Pietro Annigoni. People don't know him maybe. So and yeah, great portrait painters generally. But yeah, I'd say those three. So yeah. Klein, Franz Klein, and yeah, Hope Gangloff, yeah.
Great. What are your future plans?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, I don't have a huge body of work available at the moment because some of it was sold, and yeah, so my plan is to develop, to have a new series of paintings and to exhibit. So maybe around the same time as the V&A opening could be nice, yeah, something like that's my goal, kind of as an idea. I don't have a venue or an outlet yet, but I think that it would be nice to have that timeline. The other thing is I like going. I love the sea, and I like being in places where you can feel free, etc. So I might have plans to paint other things, such as seascapes or mermaids or something like that. Yeah, something different. So
I come to an end with a hard question. This is really tough. It's not for me. It's from the German filmmaker Hermann Waske, and he made. No, I'll tell you later. But his question he told to many people. It's just this: why are you creative?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think that it's if those who have a bit of a sort of religious outlook, let's say, I feel that there is this idea that there's a sort of project for everybody, and I think that for some people, there is this urge to create something that's never been seen before, to make something beautiful in the world, to bring beauty, to bring interest, and to maybe say something universal about the human experience, so that everybody can relate in a united kind of way to that, as we're all human, and so we should be friendly to each other and not do, fight each other and have wars and this kind of thing. So I think that's the message. The other reason is maybe more, I have to speak candidly. I think that some art may come from a place of, say, loneliness or something like that. So when you need to entertain yourself as a kid, you draw. That's one of the things you do, and if you're that way inclined, and you spend time trying to create something beautiful. But I think it's a way to entertain oneself and to spend time when you have when you're on your own, let's say. So that's why some artists like to be on their own in the studio, etc. That's what you're used to. So it comes from that, both, in my opinion.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Sara.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much.